All right, let's get it going right here, right now. This is the Triple Threat Podcast being brought to you today on the Vince Russo Brand Network, as also the Realm Network. And if you didn't know by now, my name is Chad, and as always, I'm joined by my tag team partner. Where is he?
Nowhere to be found.
One and only JP, John Paz, and we all know who this guy is. Sitting right behind me, he is the franchise Shane Douglas, the host of the Triple Threat Podcast. Shane, we are on location today.
Yeah, this is our first ever in 104 episodes, and we're on vacation in beautiful, steaming hot Charlotte, North Carolina for the gathering, and so it's been a pretty good weekend so far.
It's been great, and what we're going to do is we're going to knock out a little bit of an episode here because we all are in Charlotte, North Carolina. This guy's been here for like 5 days, it seems. John and I got here a couple days ago. We made a little trip out of it, so we didn't get a chance to record.
Last night,
oh my gosh, I'm still feeling it right now. 3 o'clock in the morning last night, thinking I might as well thought I was a member of the Four Horsemen.
I'm still going. So
I was a member of the Four Horsemen last night, not the Triple Threat. Although, I mean, you Triple Threat guys, you Triple Threat guys, I think you guys know how to really cut a rug.
Ourselves.
Exactly. So we're here in Charlotte, man. We're at the gathering. It's at the beautiful Hilton University Hotel. What a campus. I mean, just what an amazing, like you can go walk around on a boardwalk. You know, geysers and ponds and ducks and Canadian geese. Yeah. It's been a hell of a weekend, but man, Shane, I know you've been pretty damn busy yourself.
Yeah, first night I got here Thursday. We had a barbecue, first barbecue I was ever in an inside room. We had a lot of great fans, and then that night at 11:30 or 11:45 did a Q&A. Had a room full of people, a lot of great questions, met a lot of good fans, and then yesterday we had Ricky Steamboat and I did a picture session in the afternoon, and then last evening, of course, the banquet, which to be honest with you, it was a bit long, but it was probably the best banquet I'd ever been to. They gave awards out to Barry Windham, Bobby Heenan's, for Bobby Heenan to his wife, his widow. Who else did they give to? Missy Hyatt. I'm getting a brain fart now. It was all really well done. They had people coming in, like they had Greg Gagne introduce. One of the other ones was to the widow of Frank, Bruce Brody. And for me, the first time I'd met a lot of these people, and I'd always heard their names and heard of them, knew of them, of course, but got a chance to meet them. And for us, like I always tell the fans, these type of things for us are like family reunions. You know, I love always seeing Barry Windham. I learned a ton from him and just watching him, when he was the machine in the ring. And then, of course, seeing guys like Ricky Steamboat. This is the types of places where I typically see him. So far, so good. Been a great time. And tonight, the first set of matches that I'll be on. I guess they had matches last night, but pretty busy weekend. And tomorrow, autograph signings and some more pictures before flying out. And then number one son goes to college on Tuesday, which just blows my mind.
You could wrestle 10 matches tonight. The emotions are going to be heavy for you when your son goes to college next week, a couple of days here. But yeah, I mean, it's so cool. If you've never been to a convention, and this one, please bear with us when you're watching this on video because I'm holding up my phone here to get this done for everybody on the brand. But if you've never been to one of these conventions, I mean, it's one of those instances, Shane, and I know this is just you walking through the lobby. You turn the corner, and there's Ricky Steamboat. Yeah. You get off the elevator, and there's Bob Backlund. Yeah. You know, you're going into the bar, and last night we were hanging out with the Dirty White Boy and Jerry Stubbs.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things you never know who you're going to run into. Jerry Stubbs taking a liking to my wife, by the way, which is, I think I might be able to get maybe a chin lock now on him at this point, but you just never know who you're going to run into, and it is very cool to see the fan interaction. And John and I worked with Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard today, and again, it's another thing. It's the Horsemen, and we're in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's literally Horseman country.
Yeah, absolutely.
So these fans, I mean, they're bringing out stuff that's 35, 40 years old. They're talking about posters and programs and pictures and cards and action figures. Yeah. It's so cool, and it makes you. I hate to use like a cliche like old school is cool, but this is an old school crowd. I mean, you cross genres in this place because you kind of touch both the modern era and that golden era.
Well, when you look at fans, I've always said I've never been a rock and roll star, so I'm sure they'd say the same thing about their fans. But wrestling fans, when you see somebody come that has some piece of memorabilia, 35, 40 years old, and they want it signed, I mean, to even hold on to something that long, you can tell that means something to that person, and that professional wrestling had made a connection to them. And when you hear the questions from the people and see the people in the hallways and the lobby of the hotel back and forth, and you can see that these people have been lifelong lovers of professional wrestling. Like Missy Hyatt said in her acceptance speech last night when she got the award, we're all marks. We're all part of the same family because we're just marks that had such a passion that we decided to get into the business. So for us, like I said, it's a great big family reunion. You get to meet fans that have been passionate for decades. I mean, let's face it, all the guys that are here, pretty much most of the guys that are here, have been retired or semi-retired, haven't wrestled on national television in decades, and yet you still see a building full of fans here excited to see an Arn Anderson, a Tully Blanchard, a Kevin Sullivan, a long list of all the 100 guys that are here. So for everybody that's been here and here, going to be here tonight and tomorrow, thanks for coming. It's been great so far. And if you haven't come, make sure you make out to a convention because they're a great experience.
Is it bad that even last night in the bar I was a little nervous around Kevin Sullivan, not knowing what he was going to pull out of that jacket?
Well, Moose said as we were walking down the hall last night and ran into my stalker in the hall for about the 18th time. He must be like hiding behind the curtains or something out there. But he said, I said, what's Kevin doing? He said, he's probably downstairs cutting a cross in his forehead. So
Yeah.
I said, well, then I found out you guys were with him. I thought, oh, geez, it's going to be hell.
It was crazy because like literally at the bar we went out to eat. My wife and I went out to eat, which is lovely during your 9-hour banquet, which is lovely.
Yeah.
And we came back and we freshened up. We went down to the bar, and it was like Ken Patera sitting at one table, and then another table was Andrew Anderson, Greg Valentine, Kevin Sullivan.
Turtle.
Yeah, it was so cool to see like just these different. God, everywhere you turn, there's just somebody else coming up. And then Jerry Stubbs, Dirty White Boy. And then all of a sudden, JR just walked through. Jim Ross literally casually walked through. And I said to my wife, I go, there goes Jim Ross. And she goes, where? I was like, he just walked away. He just went in there. And Tully Blanchard peeked his head into the bar. And it's one of these, this is a 4-day event.
Yeah.
And you think about 4-day events for anything, you got to put in a hell of an effort. And this guy, Marty, he did a pretty damn good job. And I think a lot of it has to do with us Northeasterners. Maybe that could be it. Us Northeasterners know how to do a convention well. But I don't know, Shane. I mean, what else can you say about this? Let me ask you this question. So, you got your signing is tomorrow, right?
Yes.
You did your thing with Ricky.
Yes.
Is there something that you've seen a fan carrying around, like an item or a piece or a belt or something that you just do a double take at and just go like, wow, man, that is pretty cool that this guy has? Is there anything that really catches your eye?
Well, yesterday when Ricky and I were doing the joint photos, every so often a person would come in just with Ricky or just with me, but most of them wanted us together. And a guy came in and he had the NWA WCW tag team belts. And said, hey, you guys want to use these for your photo shoot? So how many people are walking around with the NWA title? Both of them, not just one replica. All this stuff. Like, when somebody comes in, the thing I mark out for is when I see the old programs. Something from 30, 35, 40 years ago.
Right.
And, just reading and looking at the lineup and thinking, this would have been a show that I would have been at as a kid, because that was the kind of stuff that I really loved going to. So yeah, it always impresses you. But like for me, there's a guy that's here. He's been wanting me to do this for about 2 years. I had done it one time for one fan in Legends of the Ring, where he brought a great big poster of the belt throwdown, and he wanted me to write out the entire speech. Well, that's as you know, I'm a pretty verbose person, and that was a pretty long promo, and to write literally the entire thing.
Yeah.
Took some time, especially because you want to space it right, not run out of space at the bottom of this guy's poster.
Right.
So there's a guy here that said that he wants to get the same thing, and I finally relented and said, okay, let Moose know, the big ugly guy with the tattoos on his arms. And so I've been getting a lot more requests for that since that the word leaked out for the first person I did it for, and now more and more people are wanting that. But it's in my head. It just blows my mind that 25 years now later, that people still even remember that, let alone wanting, some kind of a piece of memorabilia from that.
Right.
And Ricky Steamboat was talking about that last night whenever another person, how did I forget this, Macho Man was given a posthumous award to his brother, of course, Lanny. And Ricky introduced Lanny and got up and told the story that he had told me years ago when we were on the road about how he and Macho had set up the WrestleMania.
That's a great story.
The match is, if you like, I'm sure there's nobody out there watching this that hasn't seen it yet, but if you haven't, or you haven't seen it for a while, pull it up on YouTube right now, because it is just a fucking amazing match. And when you watch how hard both of those guys are working and how many spots they got in, he said it last night and I never realized it. The match is only 17 minutes long.
Right.
And they had something like 35 segments and I think 22 false finishes.
Yeah.
To squeeze all
those
that
sequences, unbelievable.
Amazing. Just, you, as a worker to performer, and you watch two guys like that creating absolute magic.
Right.
And what I didn't know until last night was Ricky talked about how typically going into a big match like a WrestleMania or a SummerSlam, they would let you work on the B or C towns to work some kinks out. And that one, they then stopped doing that. So they weren't able to work together, but they would often every night write down spots and kick them around and mold them.
Right.
But never really had a chance. So the fact that night at WrestleMania 3 was the first time they were in the ring actually performing the spots that they had set up and crafted out. And then you look how just perfection that match is.
Unbelievable.
It is totally so much mad respect for those guys and what they can do.
Yeah, and they were on the floor literally in arenas practicing, we got to do this, we got to do that. I don't want to say practicing. They were going over different things that they were going to do in the match.
Yeah.
And it became a masterpiece that everybody across the board. I mean, I've even heard Jesse the Body Ventura say it was the greatest match he's ever seen.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like unbelievable.
And Jesse don't put stuff over like that.
No.
It's not like Jesse's MO.
And especially if it's somebody else, he's putting over somebody else to that extent. It's a big deal. But, Ricky Steamboat, I mean, he's a guy. And again, I saw him getting off the elevator. I just walked by. I said, wow, that's Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. And all the times I work with Ricky Steamboat, interviewed Ricky Steamboat, I still get that.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. I showed my wife, I said, that's Sergeant Slaughter.
Yeah,
just walked in the room because, yes, he's Sergeant Slaughter. He's a little older, but he's still Sergeant Slaughter. You see him, he still leads with his chin when he walks into the room. But this was great. You were obviously you weren't on the convention floor with us, but Bob Backlund.
Yeah.
Known to be a little, eccentric. Is that being kind? Is eccentric? Okay. Known to be a little eccentric at conventions. All of a sudden, he just starts yelling, and you turn around, and I even saw Tully Blanchard turn around. He has Sergeant Slaughter in a cross-faced chicken wing across the other side of the convention floor, and it's just like, man, only in a wrestling convention can you see Bob Backlund putting Sergeant Slaughter in a cross-faced chicken wing in 2019, right? I mean, how great is that?
Yeah, you're not going to catch it at a Walmart or a Get-Go anyplace. You're going to have to come to a convention to see something like that.
Now, with the dinner, I know there was a long dinner because we knew a couple people who were in the dinner, and they were even saying like, this is a friggin' long dinner, right?
It was. Everybody. I mean, all the speeches were great.
Yeah.
All the presentations were great. All the guests I had at my table were great. I mean, there was no bad experience.
Right,
it
right.
just got long. 6:30, you're thinking it may be out by 9:30.
Yeah.
And around 11 o'clock when we finally let out, you could see people have to go to the bathroom until they literally was up to here, and then they zip out and come running back in. But no, it was a good experience. Like I said, I think the best one I've ever been to.
And what I want to say is that you guys sat with a group of fans. So from what I was told, there was basically fans were given a list. I don't know if it was priority or if it was like special drawing or you pick your name out of a hat. But fans paid X amount of dollars, I don't know how much it was, to have this banquet go on and have a wrestler sit at the table. So were they like asking you guys questions intermittently? Like how did that work and how did you like kind of spending that intimate time with the fans?
Well, when we first got in there at 6:30, we were told what room or what table we were at. Anyway, I went and sat down, and the guests joined me, and we spoke for probably 45 minutes to an hour, just answering questions and just batting stuff back and forth, like sort of like we're doing right now. And they all had great questions, and for me, it's amazing that there wasn't one. And lately, I've been seeing this, like walking around the hotel with my stalker again in the hall. He's probably outside the door right now, and at the dinner. it hasn't been the same questions over and over again. It's been questions from a different perspective. We're asking about, like one guy asked about, what was it like to train with Dominic Tanucci and Mick Foley and all the guys,
right?
And and they were all very well versed. They were familiar with Brian Hildebrand, Mark Curtis, and they were familiar with Cody Michaels and being in Freedom, Pennsylvania. So like that's. Like that anybody would even put that in the brain memory cell someplace that it was Freedom, Pennsylvania, it just astounds me. But that's again, it's the passion of the wrestling fans.
Right.
I had a really good group of guys that I was sitting with, and I talked to Steamboat afterwards, and he said the same thing about his table. It looked like everybody in that room was having a great time.
That's cool. Now, we usually talk about it and kind of laugh, like Shawn Michaels, yes, he's not your favorite person in the world. Vince McMahon, yes, not your favorite person in the whole world. Was this a different crop of questions than you would normally get because this is a more of that old school, like we're talking, this is Crockett territory, legit horseman country. Like, were you getting different questions than you normally get?
Very few WWF questions. The only question I think I got at the table last night about WWF was, when you worked there, like when did you realize you really? It was a question that segued out of the question about the Revolution.
Right.
And,
okay.
So everything else was pretty much centered around NWA or the wrestlers that were big here in the NWA.
Right.
Oddly enough, there's not one question about the belt throwdown, which
really?
I was sort of surprised by.
See, and I'm going to tell you something kind of funny. That's basically all I talked about at the bar last night. Because people were saying, like, are you guys going to do anything for the 25th anniversary? What's coming up? And we're saying, like, yeah, we'll probably do something. That episode we did at the beginning, which you can still find and people do listen to still, when we covered it for 2.5 hours.
Right.
I mean, that kind of was like the template. That might call for a rebroadcasting just because that was so comprehensive. But yeah, it's 25 years in 2 weeks, So
yes.
I was talking about it last night.
Is that quickly?
Yeah.
20,
right. It's the 17th today?
Yeah, was it the 24th we did that?
23rd, 24th. Yeah, it's right around the corner.
Yeah,
so I actually that's what I was talking about last night with a couple different people was, are you going to do anything about the throwdown? Because I had a lot of people coming up, and I should have mentioned that. And I should have mentioned that to Vince off the top here too. A lot of people coming up talking about the show and saying that they love that we're doing the video, and that, they love the stuff that's been coming out of it, and they love that appearance with Ben Hameen a couple weeks ago.
Right.
And that's what
which I will be reciprocating very soon. As soon as Connor goes to college on Tuesday, I suspect I'll have a lot more free time because I have literally been on a scavenger hunt for the last month and a half. It's crazy. Any parents out there that have sent a kid to college, you know exactly what I'm talking about, and you guys have a couple of years to go before you get into it. But
many.
Start collecting now because it'll take you about that long to get it all together.
I think by the time our youngest goes to college that we're going to be taking those Jetson cars. Yeah. The one where George Jetson would throw his briefcase and the car would pop out of it like a bubble. I think that's the car that we're going to be taking our youngest daughter to college in.
Uber helicopters, right?
Yeah.
Would you get one of those?
I wouldn't get in a regular Uber.
Exactly. There wouldn't be a chance in hell I'm getting in a driverless car. Not a chance in hell.
That was a conversation also had last night, around, let's see, so we got in about 3, so maybe around 12:45-ish of wanting to go to different establishments in the local Charlotte, North Carolina area. Hey, let's get an Uber and go to this place. I said, I don't do Uber.
Yeah.
I don't do, because you know what Uber is? It's just a guy in a car.
Yeah. Well, especially now, like when you see all these stories of, these young women getting in these and they disappear, they're found dead a day or two later, or, they're attempted rapes and stuff. It just seems to me like getting in a car with somebody you don't know, and you're trusting a little screen to say, well, this is Joe Blow and he's a great guy or a great woman. You have no idea who that person is. They got a gun under that seat or something. And, and the same thing, like I said, with that driverless car thing, I just can't imagine anybody voluntarily getting one of those things because I would never do it.
How about a wrestlerless match?
Yeah, well, they have that.
Just
the invisible.
The invisible is a blank canvas, ropes, entrances, pyro, and then an announcer calling the action.
Wrestling at its very finest.
Would we call that suspension of disbelief, Wrestling Federation?
Yeah, I would say suspension of a whole lot more of that kind of stuff, including the lower colon.
That's a pretty damn good point. So, I mean, we wanted to pop on here today. We wanted to get something out here for this week's episode and just kind of go over it. So we'll title this episode 104, but next week. Yeah, exactly. Mini-sode. We're on video because I will say, Shane, you did guarantee video last week.
Yeah, that's right.
You did guarantee video.
Hey, by the way off the subject, did you see Barry Windham He's lost over 100 pounds. He looks phenomenal.
I did. Barry Windham is a guy that I always like. I love Barry Windham. I love watching his matches. I've worked with him a few times.
Have you ever seen a Barry Windham match you didn't like?
I've never seen a Barry Windham match that I don't like. Even when they were leaving the WWF in '85, him and Rotundo, they were leaving. The match where they lost the titles was very anticlimactic. It was still a damn good match because he gets hit with Classy Freddie Blassie's cane on the back of his head. Right. You would have thought he was dead.
Yeah.
So no, that there is never a Barry Windham match that I never liked. But he walked by earlier and he came over and he said hi to Arn, and I saw from his T-shirt.
Yeah.
Barry Windham has not updated his laundry since he lost all that weight. His sleeve was like out to here with his arm sticking out of it. He looked fantastic.
He's when I first met him, he was a really tall guy. Obviously a tall guy, but he was leaner built, and I never really saw the similar. Like, he didn't look to me like Blackjack Mulligan.
No,
he and Blackjack look very different. But man, as he's gotten older, he is a spitting image of his dad.
Yes,
and those hands. I mean, he's got hands that are like this big. There's like gigantic hands, just like Blackjack had. That's what first I said to him last. I said, "Man, damn, you got your dad's mitts. Where'd those come from? He's like a damn catcher's mitt."
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I am such a mark for Barry's work. I used to sit and watch and study his stuff over and over again. His selling was incredible. On par with, I put him, Steamboat, and Ricky Morton in the same class. Just incredible sellers. And his psychology was there. And he moved, even though he was 6'6" or whatever the hell he is, a big guy. He moved like a guy my size at that time, 200-pounder.
Right.
And, but was believable in everything.
Yeah.
That's the stuff that always got me, like the clip that you guys sent with Tully Blanchard in Florida.
Yeah.
You watched I kept watching it over and over again. Not to watch myself, I'm watching Tully because the punches and the intensity.
Oh my gosh.
And the way it looked like he was kicking somebody's ass in a bar.
He did, yeah.
And that's how it's supposed to look.
And he was out of the business for about 3 years up to that point. So for him to be able to just dial that back in, and it's like it's the rapid fire of the punches.
Yes.
I mean, it was legit. That's what a street fight is. That's
Absolutely.
how if you were in a fight, you would act. You'd be trying to get as many punches in as possible as you can. And I'll tell you what, that's a topic that's going to be, I think, a show in a few weeks, because we've been getting a lot of tweets about Barry Windham. We've been getting a lot of tweets about not Barry Windham, Tully Blanchard, and that mini feud, what could have been, what should have been, what you guys could have done together, what you did do. I think that's going to be coming up.
There's an awful lot of backstory to that.
Yeah.
A lot of things that were going on behind the scenes and stuff that I've never really spoken publicly about. So it'd be pretty interesting to get into.
I did, and I meant to talk to Tully about it today to kind of just get a couple little bullet points from him, but we were just so busy down there with the people, with the clamoring for the Horsemen, in Charlotte. I mean, that's Horseman country, legit.
Yes.
There's a sign, I think I passed it right before the Hilton. It's a Horseman country.
Yeah, that's why the Triple Threat guys barricaded up here so they're not.
Exactly. That's Philadelphia. Yeah, that'd be Triple Threat country.
Yes, right.
But before we wrap it up about Barry Windham, just want to say this: heel or babyface, which would you prefer?
Oh, me personally, just because I started watching him when he was a babyface, but his heel stuff was just as he made such a smooth transition from babyface to heel. And was believable in that when he went, when he first joined the Four Horsemen, you couldn't believe Barry Windham was joining the Four Horsemen, and I'd say by a hair his babyface stuff, because he just was so amazing in the way he sold and fire up. There's a famous photo of him where he's firing up and he's got his arms pulled back to his side and he's arching out. You could tell he's just shrieking. Yeah. And the veins in his neck are popping out, and it looks like a wild animal on National Geographic. It's just so perfect. And and I know probably what happened is back then those old timers would lean on you. Yeah. And try to like cover your face so you couldn't breathe and stuff, so that when it came time to make the comeback, you'd be blown up. Right. So when you would finally make that comeback, you'd be so pissed off. So my guess is that picture of Barry is him being pissed off as, you son of a bitch, it's time to make a comeback. But what an incredible way for those veterans to pull the younger kids into that, instead of trying to play pissed off. Really piss you off, and then just the magic.
How much time do you think Barry would have spent on his entrance as compared to the kids today? What do you think? How long?
I'd say Barry, when he was a babyface, would have been 5 to 7 seconds entrance, and as a heel, maybe 8.5 seconds. He had to get to the ring, man. He had business to take care of.
Yeah. Those entrances are a little polished now.
Hell yeah.
They're a little polished, a little contrived. But that's okay. It's a different era. It's a different time. All right, so we're going to wrap it up here now. We did about 25 minutes here on the video. We'll be back in full force this coming week, and Shane will be back on video. We're going to put a triple threat guarantee.
Hold on.
I put it over there. It's out of frame.
You got this little box thing. It's called like a Wi-Fi thing or
Yeah.
something. Wi-Fi or something.
Wi-Fi,
Wi-Fi,
yeah.
right?
Wi-Fi,
Yeah.
Wi-Fi.
Yeah, Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
It's a Wi-Fi box. So,
Wi-Fi.
Yeah, we're going to be perfect next time.
Now, how come I didn't just have my wife hold this and two of us would be in
I was
frame the
wondering
whole
the same
time?
thing.
Why am I doing this the whole time and switching back and forth? So, look, we appreciate everybody bearing with us. This has been a fun trip. I'm just glad we could get something out.
Yes.
We've been trying to coordinate it for a day and a half, but some of us stayed out till 3 o'clock. Some of us were in banquets for 4 hours.
Yeah.
You know, John is downstairs with Arn Anderson
Social
doing
butterfly.
Yeah, John's doing something with Arn Anderson downstairs, probably negotiating how the 4 fingers are just going to be permanently stuck on his hand forever going forward. But we'll see him back next week. You know, Shane, I don't know. There's really not much else to say for this episode. I guess we'll, if you want to follow us, obviously, on Twitter, at 2 Man Power Trip, at The Franchise SD, at Wrestling Pal, and at The 3 Threat Pod. Please hit us up. Again, the Tully Blanchard stuff is all because of Twitter. Yeah. That's the same thing with the XPW stuff. That was all because of Twitter. So we'll definitely be doing a lot of stuff going forward. And I'll tell you what, before we get to this. So when I put the one clip that I did out there of XPW, I put a couple of the, the DVD covers in the background, and you had your picture in the front of it. Rob Black started following the show, and somebody tweeted at Rob Black and then tweeted at us to say, I guess he's teasing some sort of XPW reunion.
Oh, really?
So maybe there really is a Glamour Reign after all that. Who would have thought? So, hey.
All started one tweet from Luke Hawks.
Luke Hawks, man, you started it all. You did. You're the one behind it. So we'll wrap it up here for this week. I'm going to turn the camera to this guy over here, Shane.
I get so shy doing these things.
Shane, take us out in the only way the franchise
episode
can.
104, mini-sode 104 out of the way. Beautiful Charlotte, North Carolina. Next week, coming to you live with my Wi-Fi box. Make sure you tune in next week or get your ass franchised.